Hello and welcome back to the another episode of Daily News Quiz Analysis for IAS Prelims 2025. It is 5th of Feb today, and in this video we are going to solve some important questions which are very much relevant for your preparation. Before we'll start our discussion, I would like to give the brief introduction about this initiative so that if you are new to our channel you will get more connected with us. you know Basically in this video we will try to discuss various types of questions, and they are taken from various sources. So depending upon the sources we will divide our discussion into three parts here. In the first part of our discussion, we will discuss questions with respect to current affairs. What we will do? We'll take up the most important articles from the newspapers. We'll try to break them down into the simplest language possible, and we will try to derive the possible prelims questions from those particular articles so that it will give you the idea what part of the newspaper is important for your preparation, what should be your approach, and how you can expect a question from that particular part. This is what we are going to do in the first part of our discussion. After solving questions with respect to current affairs, we will shift our approach to the another part of our discussion where we will solve questions with respect to static topics. Currently we are discussing Indian polity from the static portion. We had reached till the office of president. We are discussing various powers of the president. Today we are going to discuss some legislative powers of the president. We'll derive a possible preliminary question from that particular part, and after that it will give the idea how the question can be asked from that particular part too. After discussing questions with respect to current affairs and the static part, we will shift our approach to the third part of our discussion where we will solve some previous year questions. In this part we will try to learn what is the vocabulary which the UPSC uses when they are framing your papers, what are the different methods they use, and how you can implement the knowledge which we will get from these questions in the upcoming exam. This is what we are going to learn in the last part of our discussion, and this is what we are going to do in this video. Now, before we will start our discussion, I would like to request you guys few things which I believe if you will follow, it is going to help you in many ways. What you should do if you are preparing for your UPSC 2025 prelims or 2026 prelims. What you should do, you should start noting down these questions. Develop your own question bank. When you have your own question bank, when you have these questions with you, what this is going to help you in many ways. For example, when your exams are near, I am talking about the month of May, when you are left with only few days, at that time you would want to revise the current affairs, you would want to revise the static part, you would want to revise the previous year questions, you would want to go for the CSET, but time does not permit you. So at that time the anxiety level is different, because I had been at that place, I know how it feels. So we feel underconfident if we are not able to go for the last mile revision. So what you can do, if you have these questions with you at that time, you would just revise these questions. These questions would definitely connect you with the current affairs, it will connect you with the static part, it will give you the previous year question analysis, and it is definitely going to boost your confidence before entering the exam hall. And also, as we discussed what are our sources, so there are chances that many questions can coincide. Suppose if not the questions, the statements can coincide. Let's suppose if not the statements either, but trust me, these would be the concepts which the UPSC is going to ask you in the exam. So be on the safer side, do note down these questions, watch the full video and learn from this video. Now with this, I would like to request you guys, please do subscribe the channel. When you subscribe, it helps the channel grow. Please share it with your friends so that they may also get benefited from this initiative. And also please do write in the comments what do you feel about the video, what else should we bring for you guys. With this, let's have a look at the first question which we had brought today. Here on the screen you can see it very much clearly. The question is about the biodiversity hotspot shared between India and Indonesia. So you may ask me a question, sir, why this? Why a question about the biodiversity hotspot, as there was no mention of it in today's newspaper? There was no discussion over it. There was no separate article about it. Why we are discussing this? How is it important for us to know about this? It is very interesting about these days newspaper. Many articles which was in the newspaper today, we had already discussed them. There was article about Trump's exit from WHO. We had already discussed that, what could be its impact, how it is time for the world to regroup and reshape the WHO. We had already discussed this. Similarly, there was an article about India and Indonesia, how India and Indonesia how their relationship can be the beacon of hope in the growing world right today. How India and Indonesia's, how this relationship, India Indonesia ties, can be a beacon of hope for the global, uh, you know for the globe right now. Because we saw, on our Republic Day, we saw that Indonesian president, he was the chief guest at our Republic Day, and we at that day we discussed that this invitation of the chief guest from Indonesia. This shows a lot about our foreign policy, what it is going to be. So with respect that, we showed the world that what our motive is for 2025, what we will try to focus on. So in this regard, it is the continuation of those articles which we had discussed from that day itself. So we saw that how our relationship has been with Indonesia. For example, how historically we shared the common, how we both were colonized, how India resisted the colonism, the attempted to recolonize from the Dutch to Indonesia. When they tried to recolonize Indonesia, how India resisted that, how India helped Indonesia. We saw that after gaining independence, after we gained independence, how our stand was when there was bipolar world going on, how we stood for non-alignment movement. We discussed it very much in detail. And this article, it is actually the continuation of that particular article itself. It further talks about what are our common concerns. For example, anti-terrorism, that's one of the concern. Food and energy, that is one of the concern. Healthcare, it is one of the concern. Manufacturing and technology, it is the concern. And it also talked about the global trade, which we already know, which is around 20 billion, and the author says it is highly underutilized. It can be doubled, or it can be called four times double. It can reach to the it can reach to the highest levels if we will utilize the trade. So all those things which we had already discussed had been included in this article. But this portion, it was little bit mentioned, but we need to know about the biodiversity hotspot which is shared between the two countries, and that we will know through this question. So let's solve the question and answer this and get information about it. As here you can see on the screen, the question says, consider the following statements regarding the biodiversity hotspot shared between India and Indonesia. First statement, both countries share the Sundaland biodiversity hotspot, known for its rich marine and terrestrial biodiversity. 100% correct. Marine and terrestrial biodiversity, this is 100% correct. This is the Sundaland biodiversity hotspot which is shared between Indonesia and the Andaman and Nicobar part, between the two countries. 100% correct. Second statement, a statement can be asked about the continuation of Indo-Burma biodiversity in this region. So let's see what does it say. Second statement says, the Indo-Burma biodiversity hotspot, which includes parts of northeast India, also extends into Indonesian based territory. Totally incorrect. This is incorrect statement. It does not extend to the Indonesian territories. Third statement, both countries have a significant number of endemic species due to their unique biographical location. 100% correct. And mostly whenever there is such statement, most of the times you should mark it correct. I would say 100 out of 100 times mark this statement correct 100 times. So mostly it is correct. Fourth statement, deforestation and habitat loss are major threats to biodiversity in India, in both India and Indonesia. 100% correct. So with respect to this question, what is the correct statement? The correct statement would be statement 1, 3 and 4 only. So from here we understood what is the shared biodiversity hotspot between India and Indonesia, and rest like the how we had been together since our independence, how we shared the common past, how where we can collaborate, how we share the grouping, multilateral groupings like G20, and recently Indonesia had been admitted to into BRICS. We had already discussed that, and I don't feel repeating the same topic multiple times would help you. But if we can form different questions on those topics, it will definitely diversify your knowledge, and we had done this with respect to this topic. So with this, let's move to the another question and see what we had brought on next slide. Here the question is with respect to annual status of education report. Even though there was no direct article over it, but definitely there was discussion over the budget allocated to the education, especially to the primary and secondary education system. The money which has been allocated to the education sector, it has shown some increase. the money allocated to education sector, especially to the primary and secondary sector, it has shown some increase, but it is not up to the level what the government has with respect to the schemes which the government has brought in, with respect to, for example, new reforms the government has done in UGC. It is not up to that, it is not matching those new reforms, because even though we had upgraded the budgetary allocation to the education system, but this much allocation is not enough. So with respect to this, there was definitely discussion over the annual status of education report, ASER report, which basically about it we learn through the question. It basically talks about how it has shown, this report has shown there is improvement in the primary education system in India with respect to its earlier reports. The dip which we had seen in the COVID-19 period, the dip in the COVID-19 period, it has been covered now according to this report. So with respect to this, what does the author here wants to convey us, that even though the money has been given, but this money has to be allocated to different NGOs, it has to be allocated to different schemes which has been put forward, it has to be allocated to different reforms, but this money is not enough what we are trying to achieve in our modern education. This is what the author says. So here what becomes important for us with respect to prelims, it is this annual status of education report, which is ASER report. So let's know about it, what it is about. Here the question says ASER is a citizen-led household survey, 100% correct. It is a citizen-led household survey that provides valuable insights into the status of education in India. Which of the following statements regarding ASER are correct? First statement, ASER assesses basic learning outcomes in reading and arithmetic among children in the age group of 3 to 16, 100% correct. Nothing wrong with the statement. The survey is conducted by the Pratham, an NGO working in the field of education, 100% correct. Third statement, ASER collects data on enrollment status, attendance and learning outcomes at the district levels, 100% correct. Nothing wrong with the statement either. Fourth statement, the report provides disaggregated data based on gender, location, rural, urban and social groups, 100% correct. So with respect to this question, all the four statements are correct. So here, why we discussed this question, let me repeat it again, because there was discussion over the allocation of funds in the education sector, even though it has been increased, but it is not up to the level which can fit all the reforms which the UGC has brought in and what we want to achieve. So there is definitely need of the increase in the education system, increase in the budgetary allocation to the education system. So with respect to this, there was mention about the ASER report, how it has highlighted that our education system at the primary level, it has been improved since the COVID era, when there was huge dip in that. And with respect to that, this ASER report becomes important for us. With this, let's move to the another slide and see what we had brought in the next slide. Here the question says, which of the following factors contribute most significantly to the financial toxicity experienced by the cancer patients and their families in India? Why we are discussing this article? Because there was this question, because there was a direct article about the financial toxicity of cancer case in India. It is also basically talking about the budgetary allocation to the healthcare sector. It talks about that, how how the healthcare sector is impacted, how there is lack of a budget in the healthcare sector. Only 2% of GDP is provided towards the budget of the only 2% of the GDP is provided towards the healthcare sector. So there is definitely need for the improvement in it. And also we are seeing that the public healthcare sectors, they are not as good as it should have been in our country. We are, according to the WHO report, the out of pocket expenditure is very high. It is said that 70% is done out of pocket expenditure under healthcare itself, according to the WHO report. And also there are various other shortcomings with respect to the healthcare sector in our country. Coverage is restricted. One of the important with respect to this is coverage is restricted. For example, the insurance schemes which we had brought in, like Ayushman Bharat, with respect to these, the coverage is very much restricted. And also shortage of staff is there. We don't have enough doctors in our country. And also, there is shortage of infrastructure. There is delays in tests and diagnostics. And all of these, when they collaborate, it leads to the disaster in our country. It leads to the disaster for the poor people who suffer from such diseases. They are not able to cope up, and whenever these diseases are detected by cancer, they are detected in the fourth or fifth level, then ultimately the fate of that person is death, and it leads to the financial burden of the family, emotional burden of the family. So with respect to this question, there was discussion over it. With respect to this article, there was a discussion over it, and the author addresses how we can improve it. First, there should be allocation of funds. State schemes should be brought in. Roles of NGOs have to analyze their role. They have to, as usually what NGOs do, they buy the medicines in bulk and provide it to the patients in the lower rates. So their roles, they have to play their role. Also, funding in the public health care sector is needed. There should be increase in the funding in the public health centers, and more cancer research institutes should be they should be developed in our country. So these are few reforms, or we can say few way forwards, which the author here also addresses. So this is in a nutshell about the article. We had brought this question. Now with this, let's solve the question and see what does the question say and get more information over it. Here the question says, which of the following factors contribute most significantly to the financial toxicity experienced by the cancer patients and their families in India? First statement, a high out-of-pocket expenditure on cancer treatment, 100% correct. This is one of the issue, and it has been highlighted by WHO that in India 70% of the out-of-pocket expenditure is seen in the healthcare sector. Second statement, lack of comprehensive health insurance coverage for cancer, 100% correct. It is not only for the cancer but for the other disease also. Even though we have these comprehensive healthcare insurances, but their coverage is very much limited. Third statement, loss of income due to patients unable to work at the caregivers or the caregivers need to provide care, 100% correct. There is loss of income due to that. When they suffer from such disease, they are not able to work, and the family collapses, the finances of the family collapses. Fourth statement, inadequate access to affordable generic cancer medications, 100% correct. That's why the role of NGOs, they have to play the role. What usually they do, they buy medicine in bulk and provide it to the patients at a lower cost. Then the fifth statement, limited availability of government sponsored financial assistance programs for cancer care, 100% correct. So with respect to this question, all the five statements are correct, which are, these are the most significantly, they contribute most significantly to the financial toxicity experienced by the cancer patients and their families in India. This is what they go through. So with this, I hope you had understood what are the issues with it, how the budget can play the role, how states can play the role, how NGOs can play the role, and how the research institutes can play their role. With this, let's move to the another slide and see what question we had brought next. Here the question is about the beggar thy neighbor policy. As the question says, the term beggar thy neighbor policy recently in the news is most closely associated with which are the following economic strategies. This policy, it was highlighted by Adam Smith, highlighted by him. So why we are discussing this policy? Because right now there are tariff wars going on between Trump or USA, we can say. It is better to represent USA by Trump versus Canada and Mexico. And as we saw in our yesterday's class also, that how he warned European Union too. So what does under this beggar the neighbor policy the country does? It implements protectionist measures, such as competitive they will competitive currency devaluation, and import tariffs will be increased from those particular countries. They will import tariffs. There would be more import tariffs on the particular countries, or Canada imports from the Canada and Mexico. There would be more tariffs on that. Because of that, the imports from Canada and Mexico would be costlier in the US, and nobody will buy that, and it will boom the domestic market according to USA. And also it will lead to the export of the US's market. This is what the whole concept revolves around. So here the author here discusses what is the solution to it. It is not better for the countries to go for the counter tariffs, that won't work in their favor, but it is better for them to diversify the market. This is the whole discussion which was there about this concept. Why we discussed it? Because of the Trump. Now let's understand this concept, a question about it can be asked in the exam. Let's see what does it say. Question says the term beggar thy neighbor policy recently in the news mostly closely associated with which of the following? First, promoting free trade agreement, totally incorrect. Third statement, engaging in international cooperations and coordinated fiscal policies to stimulate global economic growth, incorrect. Fourth statement, investing heavily in foreign aid and development, incorrect. What would be the answer? It would definitely be B, which is implementing protectionist measures such as competitive currency devaluation and import tariffs to boost domestic demand at the expenses of other nations. 100% correct. So with respect to this question, the correct statement would be option C. With this, let's move to the last question from the current affairs which we had brought. Here the question is about the bollworm, a significant pest affecting agricultural crops is mostly commonly associated with which of the following crops in India? About bollworm, is it associated with rice? No. Wheat? No. Sugarcane? No. Definitely cotton. Why we had discussed this question? Because there was discussion over the allocation to cotton. 500 crore has been allocated, but according to the farmers, it is not enough for them. What are the issues with the cotton in the India? The yield is declining. This is one of the issue. Second, lack of there is lack of innovation from the Indian side. Third, same pattern of cultivation is being used and it has led to the yielding lack of yield, and also the disease which bollworm disease which is impacting the cotton production. This is also one of the issue with respect to its production, how it has impacted the cotton production. So more about the cotton production, we should know that it is an kharif crop. It requires rainfall between 50 to 100 centimeters. And what is the temperature required? It is 22 degree to 37 degree centigrade. This is the 37 degree centigrade, and it also requires 210 days 210 days of frost free. So these are few requirements for the cotton cultivation. Why we discussed it? Because the budget which has been allocated to it, according to money, it is not enough for the cotton industry in our country. So with respect to this, there was term which was associated with the bollworm, how it impacts its cotton cultivation. So we needed to know about this term bollworm. So with this, I hope you had understood every concept which we had brought here from the daily news, from the current affairs. Now with this, we will shift our approach to the another part of our discussion, where we will try to discuss the static part questions, or we can say static part. As you know, currently we are discussing the Indian polity. Here today's question is with respect to Article 79. Currently we are discussing President of India with respect to Indian Constitution. We discussed his various powers. We discussed his executive powers. We discussed his military powers, his diplomatic powers. We discussed his mercy powers. Now today we are going to discuss. From today we will start to discuss his legislative powers. Under legislative powers, first we have to know what legislature is, what parliament is, and that has been defined under Article 79. And through this question, we will understand about Article 79 and about the parliament. Here the question says, Article 79 of the Indian Constitution, cornerstone of India's parliamentary system, outlines the structure of the national legislature. 100% correct. Which of the following statements accurately reflect the scope and content of Article 79? So here we will understand what Article 79 is. First statement, it explicitly defines the specific powers and responsibilities of the president in relation to parliament. No, it does not explicitly define it. These are terms which often confuse you in the exam, including the power to summon, prorogue. We know the president has the power to summon and prorogue, but we don't know whether it is explicitly till now we don't know whether it is explicitly mentioned in Article 79. No, it is not explicitly mentioned under Article 79. So this statement becomes incorrect. Second statement, it establishes the composition of two houses of the parliament, specifying the maximum number of members for each and outlining the methods of their election or nomination. Totally incorrect. It does not establish this. Third statement, it declares that the Parliament of the Union shall consist of President and two houses to be known as the Council of States and the House of the People. This is exactly what Article 79 is about. So here we understand the Articles of the Parliament. What does it consist of? It consists of the President. It consists of the two houses. What are these houses? One is Council of States, which is also called Raj Sabha, and another is House of People, which is called Lok Sabha. This is what the from here, from today we will learn what are the legislative powers which are enjoyed by the president. And today's lecture, it was basically about the Article 79, what the parliament is, what the national legislature looks like. What does it look like? It looks like the parliament of the union shall, it should consist of president and two houses. Then the fourth statement, let's see what does it say. It details the qualification and disqualification of members in either house. Totally incorrect. So with respect to this question, the correct statement is option 3. And also through this question, I hope you had learned about Article 79. You had learned about the composition of the parliament, composition of the national legislature. With this, let's move to the last part of our discussion, where we'll solve a previous year question. Here, today's previous year question, it says, it is from paper 2010. This question was asked. It says, what causes wind to deflect towards left in the southern hemisphere? Suppose this is the globe, this is equator, this is northern hemisphere, and this is southern hemisphere. So what does the question say here? This is pole, high, and this is low pressure. Here it would be high pressure, it would be low pressure, and it is high pressure. So it says what will happen towards left in the southern hemisphere, what causes this wind to move towards the southern hemisphere, and what causes wind to deflect towards the left in the southern hemisphere, and towards the right in the we can say in the northern hemisphere. It is only because of what? Because of the Coriolis force, or we can say because of Coriolis force, or we can say rotation of the earth. Rotation of earth leads to Coriolis force, and this leads to the deflection of wind towards left in the southern hemisphere and towards the right in the northern hemisphere. So with respect to this question, the correct statement would be rotation of earth. So with this, we complete today's discussion with the current affairs. I hope with the current affairs static part and the previous year question. With this, I hope you had understood everything. If anything is not, if there is anything which I was not able to explain properly, please do write in the comments. We will try our best to reach out to you guys and explain that. And with this, I would like to thank you guys for staying with me. Thank you very much. Have a nice day and best of luck.